Welcome to the Witchy Work Wishes podcast, a place to find your weekly inspiration for bringing your personal witchcraft practice into your business, work, and office. We have a big celebration coming up next week, and with it comes a big full moon. So before we jump into the full Beltane episode, I wanted to talk about protection and some Beltane wards. Welcome back to Witchy Work Wishes. I am so glad you are here with me today because this time, right now, this space between the dark moon work we've been doing and that big bright outward energy of Beltane that's coming, well, it's a good space for some protection work. And not in a, something bad is coming kind of a way, but in a really grounded, intentional way. Because as things start to open up, as energy starts to expand and, we begin to step out into the world a little more, we want to be clear about what we are carrying with us and what we're not. Beltane is big energy. It's movement and connection and creation. And for all of my big fire energy witches, we're here, like this is it. This is our celebration. Beltane is fire. And anytime we step into something that open and alive, we naturally become more energetically visible, which means we want to feel grounded in ourselves, protected in our space, and clear, crystal clear in our energy. So that, what we are building and celebrating and stepping into feels good, aligned, and ours. And this time of year is when the energy of the fae, the fairies, the unseen starts to feel a little more active, a little more present. Now, you don't have to believe in fairies in a literal sense to work with this energy, but if you've ever felt that shift in spring, that kind of buzzing and playful, maybe slightly unpredictable energy in the air, that's the kind of current we're talking about. And traditionally, this time of year has always been associated with, thinning of boundaries. It doesn't just happen at Samhain, but here too in a very different way. It's less, quiet and reflective and more active, alive, and interactive. So anyways, I want to touch base on this energy today too. But first, some housekeeping notes and things here over at Witchy Work Wishes. I don't know. First, I have to ask though, what about last week? Everything leading up to that new moon on Friday. What was that? Oh, the thing is, we kind of knew it was coming, didn't we? If you listen to any of the astrology podcasts like I do, they were all saying the same thing. Last week was just Aries, 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 and more Aries. Lots of energy, fire, intensity, movement, pushing. And still, even when you know it's coming, it does not make it any easier to move through. It was a lot for me. I'm sure it was for you too. It was a little bit chaotic. Like, I don't know, everything was being stirred up all at once and asking, okay, what are we doing now? So I am really, really glad that energy has passed. And now we've shifted. We are in Taurus season now, and I can feel it. I hope you can too. This is our grounding season, our, settling season, our come back to the body season. Taurus does not push just to push. I think Taurus wants us rooted and steady and intentional with the things we do. It really is the energy of putting like our bare feet on the earth, taking a deep breath, and remembering that we do not have to do everything all at once. This is where we are, building, but in a way that really lasts. This is where we nourish what we just, kind of stirred up, where we take everything that got shaken loose in Aries season, and hopefully, instead of reacting to it, we choose what we want to keep, what we want to grow, and what we are ready to, set down for good. So I don't know if this past week felt like a storm, Taurus, well, Taurus is the quiet morning after, and we get to decide what we plant in this softer, steadier soil. Or at least that's how I'm looking at things right now. Let's see. Last week I also, in the middle of all that chaos, switched up my office for my corporate work. And instead of going back and forth between the two offices, which are located in two very different cities, I consolidated into just one. It is going to be amazing. But last week had very little boundaries with the space. Now, I know it was also the big tax day in the United States. And for anyone in the bookkeeping and accounting world, you know While January is definitely the trifecta of stress, everything leads up to April 15th. So there were a bunch of moving parts with clients and deadlines and then offices and staff. I woke up on Monday morning at 3 a.m. and could not go back to sleep. So I started work at 4 a.m. Tuesday, I woke up at 4 a.m. and started at 5. I was hopeful with this pace. Wednesday did not disappoint. I woke up at 5 and started work at 6. Thursday was about the same. I think I got up at 5 and did maybe a little bit more in the house before I started at 6:30. But each of those days I worked till just about 5 p.m. And 12 and 13-hour days are hard, not only emotionally and spiritually, but they're physically hard. But I am physically close to home now, so I can zip over, have lunch with my chickens, let them roam around the yard for a bit, and put my bare feet in the grass for just a moment and be outside with the girls and ground myself really. It did not erase all of the stress, but it helped. Like it did help. I am really excited to jump into May though and just start the month off with our big, big Beltane celebration and our big, big full moon. You guys already know that episode is coming up and it is going to be such a good one. But normally I would be diving straight into that right now. And I just couldn't quite do it this week. Because if you've been here with me for the last couple of episodes, we have been in some deep waters. We have been talking about some real, heavy, meaningful things. And Beltane is just the opposite of that. It's fire and passion and celebration. It is, life just bursting forward. It's the party. It really is the party. It is the joy and spark, coming back online. So instead of just jumping straight from one into the other, I wanted to create a little bridge for us, a moment to transition, kind of catch our breath, to ground back into ourselves before we step into all of that bright, expansive energy. Because with big celebrations, with big openings, with big energy like Beltane, we are not just calling in joy and abundance. We are opening doors. And as witches, when we open doors, we do it with intention, right? So instead of walking into this next week with just our party hats on, I thought it would be really important for us to talk about protection and boundaries, about how we hold our energy while everything around us starts to expand. So today, we are going to talk about protection steps and specifically Beltane wards so that when we step into that fire next week, we are doing it grounded, supported, and fully in our power. So sit back and relax. I am so glad you are here with me now sharing this space. Let's talk about the Fae and Fairies a little bit and our Beltane wards for next week's big Wheel of the Year celebration. The idea of the Fae goes all the way back to old European folklore, especially in places like Ireland, Scotland, and I'll say parts of England. Now, these weren't originally, the tiny, sparkly, winged beings we see in modern stories and movies. They were something very different. The word Fae comes from old terms tied to fate, enchantment, and the other world. They were thought of as beings that existed alongside our world, not above it, not below it, but right next to it, just slightly out of reach. In a lot of traditions, they were seen as part of nature itself, connected to the land, the forests, the water, the seasons, those unseen forces that move through the natural world. Some stories describe them as spirits of the land, others as ancient beings that existed long before humans. And some even believed they were ancestors or, spirits who had crossed over and remained close to this world. But one thing that shows up over and over again is that they are not purely good or bad. They are other. They have their own rules, their own ways, their own sense of balance. And that's pretty important to understand because historically, people didn't approach the Fae casually. There was respect. Caution, yes, of course, there's a lot of caution, but also a kind of awareness that you were interacting with something that didn't operate the way we do. Offerings were left, things like milk, bread, honey, not as worship or, a way you would work with a deity, but as a gesture of goodwill. Boundaries were respected. People didn't assume they could take from the land without giving something back. And at certain times of the year, like Beltane, which we're approaching right now, there were believed to be moments when that boundary between worlds became a little thinner. Again, not in the quite reflective way that we see at Samhain, but in a more active way. This is when the Fae were thought to be more likely to cross paths with us. And so our ancestors became a little more mindful and intentional, a little more aware of how they moved through their space. And I think this is where witches historically began working with this energy, not by trying to control it, but by learning how to exist alongside it. Working with the Fae looked like honoring the land and leaving small offerings and, creating protections around the home, being mindful of boundaries and just listening more than speaking. It was a relationship for sure. And that's the piece that still carries forward into our modern practices. You don't have to fully believe in fairies as a physical being, to work with his energy. You can think of it as the spirit of nature, or maybe, the intelligence of the land, or even the unseen currents that just move through the world and around us. And working with it means simply, I think, just being aware, being respectful, and understanding that not everything is meant to be controlled. Some things are meant to be acknowledged and met with a little bit of wonder. Now, I did a big Fae and Fairy series last year, so if this is something that really interests you, you can always go back and listen to those episodes and spend a little more time in that space. I am by no means an expert in Fae work, not even close, but I am deeply, deeply interested in it. There is something about that energy, that connection to the land, the unseen, the in between, that just keeps pulling me in. And I think part of that is because it doesn't feel like something you can just fully figure out. It's something you experience, something you notice and build a relationship with over time. And I'm really, really hoping that I get to take this a step further this year because when I head to Scotland this fall, I want to do a little bit of boots on the ground research and not in a formal, structured, then let me take a bunch of notes and study this kind of way, but in a really personal way, walking the land, paying attention, noticing what I feel, and just allowing myself to be in that energy in a place where so many of these stories and traditions come from. So, guess what? Part of why Scotland is so deeply tied to the Fae and fairies is because the folklore there never really left. In a lot of places, these stories faded. They maybe got turned into just fairy tales. But in Scotland, especially in the Highlands and the Islands, Fae lore stayed alive. It was passed down through generations, not just as stories, but as something people genuinely respected and in some cases believed in. There are even records of people as late as the 1800s who spoke about the Fae as part of their everyday, yet like day in and day out day reality. It wasn't a fantasy. Another huge piece of this is the land. Scotland has this wild, untouched, almost otherworldly landscape. It's got misty hills and ancient forests and standing stones. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to be with some of them. Scotland has hidden lochs and rolling moors. There are so many places that feel like the Fae and fairies can exist like between worlds. And my guess is when you're in that space, it's not hard to understand why people felt there was something more there. The Fae became a way of explaining and honoring, the unseen presence in nature. Scotland is deeply rooted in Celtic tradition, and in those traditions, there was never really like a hard line between the physical world and the unseen one. The Fae were often understood as spirits of the land and guardians of certain places, and beings that existed in a parallel realm, like the other world. They were not imaginary, they were part of the ecosystem of existence. Also, Scotland is often described as having thin places, places where the veil between worlds just feels softer, more open. And that ties directly into what we talked about last week with the veil, doesn't it? In these places, People feel like you can sense something like just beyond sight. Time feels different, energy feels layered, and naturally, of course, the Fae became part of that understanding. Historically, people in Scotland didn't treat the Fae lightly. There was such a deep respect, but also caution. People would leave offerings like milk, bread, and honey. They would avoid disturbing certain areas like fairy mounds or rings. And they would speak carefully about them, even calling them the good folk, because the belief wasn't just that they existed, it was that they interacted. This is part of why our trip there is going to feel so totally powerful. We are not just going somewhere beautiful. We are stepping into a place where the land still holds those stories and the energy has been acknowledged for centuries and centuries. And the connection between worlds has always been a little closer. So when I say I want to do boots on the ground work, I'm talking about walking, noticing, feeling, and just letting the land speak in its own way. I am also really curious about modern day Scotland. I'm sure, like us, most people today are living everyday lives and working, raising families, going about their day just like we are. I'm guessing we are not going to walk into a cafe in Edinburgh and have everyone casually talking about the Fae like it's part of daily conversation. I'm not expecting that, but that doesn't mean the energy is gone. Even if modern culture has shifted, the land hasn't. Places like old stone circles, fairy hills and mounds, forests and lochs and, the untouched landscapes still carry that same feeling, that thin place, energy we keep talking about. Maybe they don't call it the Fae. Maybe, I don't know, they're going to say things like, it just feels different there. Or it's really peaceful, but also kind of intense. Or I don't know, maybe they're just going to say, hey, there's something about this place. I'm going to be open to everything, like everything. The stories, the land, the people, all of it. Okay, I got off track. Back to the Fae. Back to the Fae and fairies. So let's talk about why Beltane is so closely tied to the Fae and the fairies. Because once you see it, it makes so much sense. It really comes down to, I think, one thing: opening. Beltane sits right at that point in the year where everything begins to open again. The earth is, warming, plants are growing, animals are more active, and there is a noticeable shift where energy starts moving outward. We're coming out of that darker, quieter, more reflective part of the cycle and stepping into something that feels more alive and expressive and visible. And in older traditions, this wasn't just physical, it was energetic. There was a belief that as the world opened, the boundary between worlds opened too. Now, we usually talk about that thin veil at Samhain, but Beltane has its own version of it. Samhain is quiet and inward and, connected to our ancestors in the spirit world in a very still and reflective way. Beltane is exactly the opposite. And it sits exactly opposite on the calendar. It's active and playful. It's a little unpredictable. It carries this strong life force energy that moves outward instead of inward. So, instead of working closely with ancestral spirits, Beltane has always been associated with nature spirits, with the Fae, the fairies, and those unseen beings that are just so deeply tied to the land itself. And when you look at what the Fae represent, I think it lines up pretty perfectly. They've always been connected to growth and fertility and creativity, to the natural rhythms of the earth. Well, I guess, no, that's not true. Not all Fae and fairies, but some have. And Beltane, well, that is peak fertility energy. It's the season of blooming and expansion, of life just fully expressing itself. So energetically, they meet in the same place. They're moving at the same frequency. And because of that, old folklore tells us that during Beltane, the Fae were more present, more noticeable, and more likely to cross into our awareness. And not in a big dramatic way, but in a very mischievous, subtle, quiet, I don't know, maybe playful way that people learned to respect. And that's also important because historically people didn't approach the Fae casually. There was a deep level of respect and awareness. And not so much fear, or my understanding is that it's not so much fear. Now, there are definitely some fae and fairies that we should fear. And if you look into them more and learn about the different types, you'll understand this better. But in general, there was a like general understanding. And so people would leave offerings as gestures of goodwill. Now, at the same time, they were celebrating, right? Fires were lit, communities gathered, there was joy and a bunch of connection and a lot of movement and life. And right alongside that celebration, there was protection. Wards placed around the home, intentions set for safety and alignment. Now, there was a quiet understanding that as energy expands, so does our visibility within it. And that's really the heart of why Beltane and the Fae, I think, are so connected. This is a season where everything is just opening, including us. Our energy, our creativity and presence in the world is opening too. So we don't protect because we're afraid of the magic. We protect so we can step into it fully, so that what we're building and celebrating and falling in feels aligned. It feels supportive. It feels like it belongs to us. And that to me is one of the most beautiful parts of this season. We're not closing ourselves off, we are opening. But we're going to open with intention and awareness, with just enough grounding to let the magic in without losing ourselves in it. Protection is not about assuming something bad is going to happen. I think it's about knowing that not everything is yours to carry. Other people's stress, emotions, expectations, environments, all of that has energy. And without some kind of awareness or boundary, it is super easy to pick that up without even realizing it. So when we talk about protection, what we're really talking about is staying rooted in yourself, knowing what feels like you and what doesn't, and being able to move through the world without absorbing everything around you. This is important for us, not just at Beltane, right, obviously, but all year long. When you're intentional with your energy, you become more aware of it. And when you become more aware of it, you also become more sensitive to what is around you. And as witches, we are not just moving through life passively. We're setting intentions and working with cycles and tuning into intuition and noticing those subtle shifts. So naturally, we are more open, right? And again, not in a vulnerable way ish, but in a receptive way. And when you're receptive, you're going to feel more. So we have a bunch of options in our practices. Protection in general for witches can look like, I would say, first working with herbs. Like if you only had one herb for protection, in my opinion, it would be rosemary. Personal choice, of course. If you've been with me for a long time, you know this is my go-to herb. I love, love, love rosemary. It is known as a cleanser, a protector, a memory keeper, and an energy resetter. I think witches have used rosemary for centuries to clear negative energy and, protect the home and strengthen our intentions. You can place it near your doorway, burn it. You can use it like incense. You can add it to your bath, and you can keep a little bundle in your kitchen or workspace. Like it is strong. I also like sage. Sage is good for protection. It's all about clearing and making space for, I think, protection to exist. I think it's used more to remove stagnant or heavy energy, kind of like a reset, of a space and something to create a clean, energetic baseline. Think of sage as the let's clear everything out so we can decide what stays herb. You can smoke cleanse your home with sage, use it before setting wards, and pair it with intention. Some basil, of course, right? Basil is good here too. It is such a beautiful one, especially around Beltane. It is protective, but it also brings abundance and good energy and harmony. So instead of just, blocking things out, it helps invite in what feels good and aligned. You can keep a basil plant in your kitchen or maybe even near your door. Of course, you can add it to food, a little kitchen witch magic. You can even place leaves in your space for both protection and prosperity. Another good thing we have, as far as an option in our practice, is working with crystals and stones. Black tourmaline, this is our energy blocker. It's probably our most used crystal for protection. If you want something that says no, like hard no, you're not coming in, that's your stone. Black tourmaline is known for absorbing negative energy and blocking unwanted energy and grounding and stabilizing your space. It's kind of like a filter, like a very clear filter. You can place it by your front door, keep it on your desk, or even just carry a small piece with you. It's one of the most commonly used protection stones for a reason. Obsidian is another good one. This one is a little more intense. It doesn't just protect, like it reveals. Obsidian is known for cutting through illusion and bringing hidden things to the surface and that deep energetic clearing energy. So this is kind of like, protection through truth. It'll help you see what's yours, what's not yours, and what needs to go. Probably the best used when you're ready to, work a little deeper. Selenite is the opposite in energy of those two, but good in this space too. It's soft and light and clearing. Instead of blocking it, selenite cleanses energy continuously, kind of raising the vibration of your space and keeping things clear and flowing. It's like having a constant reset happening around you. You can place it in your home, use it to cleanse other crystals, and just keep it near your bed or workspace. Really, if you think about these three as a system, black tourmaline blocks and absorbs. Obsidian, it clears and reveals. And selenite, well, it maintains and uplifts. You really have protection from every angle. I'll say third for protection is just working with our elements. If you are more into working with the elements in your practice, which I personally love, we can call on each one's energy to help us protect our space. Fire, protection through clearing and strength is going to be our active protector. It clears, it burns away, it creates a very strong boundary. This is really the element you reach for when you want to remove heavy energy, strengthen your space, and just feel empowered and grounded. This can look like lighting a candle with intention, visualizing a protective flame around you or your home, or even just sitting by a fire and releasing what you don't want to carry. Fire basically says, yeah, like, hey, this ends here. Air is our, protection through movement and clarity element. Air protects by moving things out and bringing clarity in. It's not super forceful. I think it's more subtle, but very effective. This is the element you want to work with when the energy feels stagnant and, your mind just feels cluttered and you need a reset. This can look like opening windows and letting fresh air move through your space. It can look like using breath work, that deep inhale and exhale with intention, or even sound cleansing. Bells, music, your voice. Air says anything that doesn't belong can go. Water is our protection through cleansing and emotional reset element. Water is your gentle protector. Like it washes and soothes and it resets your emotional and energetic state. This is the go-to element for letting go, for emotional clearing and, some soft protection. This can look like showers or baths with intention, washing your hands and releasing the day, or even just, placing water in your space as a calming, protective presence. Water, I think it says, hey, you don't have to hold on to this. And then we've got earth, our protection through grounding and stability element. Earth is our foundation for sure. It holds, stabilizes, it keeps you rooted in yourself. This is the element you want when you feel scattered and you need boundaries and you want that lasting protection. This can look like working with stones or crystals, placing plants in your space, or, just standing barefoot on the ground, literally grounding. Earth basically says, like, hey, this is your space, stay here. Now, working with all four elements is going to be our best bet, right? We're not just protecting ourselves in one way, we're creating a full system. Fire clears and strengthens, air moves and refreshes, air softens and releases, and earth, it grounds and holds. Let's see, another way we have some protection options is daily work. Now, you guys know deity work is not my specialty, but we can also talk about the spirit element for protection here. Connecting to something beyond ourselves, something we trust, something we can call on, walk with, or just feel supported by. And this is going to look very different for everyone. Some people work with ancestors, some with like spirit guides, and some of us are going to work with deities. If you feel drawn to deity work, there are a few that I think are traditionally known for protection energy, not because they fight for you, but because they hold strong boundaries, they guide transitions, and they just help you stand in your own power. First has to be Hecate, doesn't it? Hecate is the crossroads guardian. She's deeply connected to protection and boundaries, the unseen, and the space between worlds. Really, she is a wonderful deity to work with right now as Beltane approaches. I think she's often worked with when you're moving through, transitions, or maybe you need clarity at a crossroad, or you want that strong intuitive protection. Her energy is steady, watchful, and incredibly grounding. Odin is another one. Odin brings a different kind of protection, I think more strategic, more wisdom based. He is associated with insight, awareness, and seeing what others might miss. So his protection comes through knowledge and foresight and understanding the bigger picture. Bridget's going to be another great one here. Bridget carries a softer but very strong protective presence. She's connected to hearth and home and fire, creativity, and healing. Her protection feels like warmth and safety and like being held in your space. I think she's beautiful to work with for home protection, family energy, and creative business growth. Protection through spirit is, I think, just going to be like, who do you feel safe with? Who do you feel connected to? Who feels aligned with your energy? And sometimes that connection starts really simple, like it did for me with Hecate. I did not call upon her. She came to me, which was super cool. But you can start by lighting a candle, saying a name, and acknowledging their presence. Spirit protection isn't about calling something in to save you. I think it's about walking alongside something that reminds you you are already supported, you are already protected, and you're not doing any of this alone. While Beltane is not tied to just one deity, I think it's more about like the union of energies, kind of a coming together of life force and creativity and growth. But you'll see figures like the Green Man or Cronos show up a lot, representing that wild, natural energy of the earth coming fully alive again. If Beltane had a face, it probably would look like the Green Man. He represents the spirit of the land, growth and vegetation, and just life returning into full force. This is that wild, earthy, masculine life force energy. He is not a god in the traditional sense, but he shows up everywhere in Beltane symbolism. The Green Man is a folklore figure and symbol, not a named deity from ancient Celtic mythology. He shows up most clearly in medieval churches and carvings across Europe, especially in places like England, Scotland, and Ireland. These carvings usually show a face made of leaves and vines growing out of the mouth, which is where the whole man of the forest imagery comes from. He is a pretty universal symbol of nature's life force that became especially strong in Celtic regions. Now, Cernunnos carries a similar energy, but maybe a little bit more defined. He's associated with nature, fertilities, and animals and abundance. He represents that untamed natural life force that Beltane celebrates. Even without a full mythology, his symbolism is very consistent. He has antlers. That's the connection to animals in the wild. He's usually seated in a grounded, like, almost meditative posture, often holding or surrounded by a bunch of animals. And sometimes he's associated with wealth, but definitely like nature and cycles. He is deeply tied to the natural world, fertility, life force and abundance, that wild, untamed, grounded energy. Now, Cernunnos Actually comes from the ancient Celtic regions of Europe, what we would now call places like France and Germany. And even though we don't have a lot of stories about it, she is pretty clear. He represents the wild, natural life force, which is exactly what Beltane is all about. If you are not sure what type of protection you should be working with this Beltane season, or I guess any season, you can always do a little divination work just to check in. Tarot cards are going to be really good for clarity and early insight. Really, I think tarot is one of the more powerful tools for protection because it helps you see what is coming in a, hey, pay attention here kind of way. You can ask things like, is this situation aligned for me? What energy am I walking into? Or even, what should I be aware of right now? Tarot gives you that early awareness so you can make better choices. A pendulum is good too, that yes or no boundary check. Now, I'm adding this because I know it's a tool many of you use, but man, I struggle with this one. The pendulum can be simple and direct if you know how to work with them, which can be amazing for protection because it helps you check boundaries pretty quick and confirms intuitive hits. And it can make clear yes or no decisions. You can ask, hey, is this good for me? Should I move forward with this? Or is this energy aligned with me? It can keep you from second guessing yourself. Oracle cards are good also, probably more for energetic guidance and support. Oracle cards don't just warn, they guide. They help you understand what energy you're in. They help to recognize patterns and stay emotionally and energetically supported. This is protection with or maybe through like awareness, alignment, and just trust in yourself. These divination tools protect you in a different way than wards or herbs. They don't block energy. They help you navigate it, right? Tarot shows you what's ahead. Pendulums can help you decide, and oracle cards, well, they can help keep you aligned. Protection is obviously going to be very personal to each of us. It's going to look very different based off of what our practices are. Those are just some general thoughts, but there are really so many areas to work in. Protection is not just about herbs and crystals and rituals. It really is a way of moving through the world with awareness, boundaries, intention, and trust. All right, let's talk about some protection wards. And if you don't know what a protection ward is, I think I mentioned it earlier, but at its core, a ward is a boundary. That's it. It's an energetic line that says this space is mine. This energy is mine. And only what is aligned is welcome here. A protection ward is something you intentionally create to protect your space, your energy, and to filter what comes in and what stays out. Think of it less like a wall and more like a filter. A ward can be something physical, like a stone, a plant, a charm, or an object placed with intention. A word can be something spoken, a simple phrase or intention that you repeat. A word can be visualized, right? Imagining light, protection, or even a boundary around you or your home. And it can be something energetic, like a feeling you anchor into your space. A word is going to be less about what you use and more about the intention behind it. It can be as simple as standing in your front door and saying, only supportive, aligned energy enters here. Or it can be as simple as washing your hands at the end of the day and thinking, anything that isn't mine ends here. Or even taking a breath before you walk into work and saying, I move through this space protected and grounded. That's a word. And especially this time of year, moving into Beltane, when the energy is expanding and opening and just becoming super, super active. Well, wards help us stay in our own energy. They don't block the magic, they just help us hold our place within it. Because this is part of the cycle right here, right? It has a purpose. We have already done the deeper work, the releasing, the reflecting, the quieter, more internal shifts. We have made our goals for the year and started planting the seeds to grow them. And now here we are. We are standing right at the edge of something that is about to become very, very active. Beltane brings movement. Things don't stay hidden at Beltane. They start to show up. They start to grow and take shape and be seen. And before we walk into that energy, that very specific kind of energy, it's worth taking a moment to get clear in a steady, grounded way. This is what I think of as protection season. Again, not, because we're trying to block anything, but because we are deciding how we want to enter this next phase. What feels solid? What feels supportive? What actually feels like it belongs in the life that we're building right now? And you know what? Maybe more importantly, what feels like it's already on its way out? Because when things start to speed up, when, the energy begins to rise, there's less space to sort through it all. So we do it now. We do it right now. We clear what feels cluttered. We create a little more breathing room in our space and ourselves. That can be as simple as resetting your home so it feels calm and intentional. It can be as simple as taking a pause before your day starts and just checking in with your energy. Also, just noticing what drains you too, though, right? And actually choosing not to carry it forward. Because once Beltane arrives, everything is going to be more expressive. And you want to meet that energy from a place that feels steady, not scattered. Now, historically, this time of year has always held that balance. There was celebration, yes, of course, absolutely, but there was also awareness. People paid attention to their homes and their land and their boundaries. They didn't shut themselves off from what was coming. They just made sure they were ready to meet it. And that's really what we're doing here today. We're not closing ourselves off. We are just adjusting. We're grounding, like our ancestors did. We are choosing how we want to show up before everything begins to open up next week. So when we do put our party hats on, when we do step into the big celebration of Beltane, when the energy rises, when things begin to move and life is just blooming all around us, we are not trying to catch up. Like, we're already there. We're already in it, centered, clear, and ready to meet it fully. All right, how about 9 witchy Beltane wards? Protection, of course, is the overall practice. And a ward, well, it is going to be one specific tool within that practice. Protection is the lifestyle, right? It's our awareness, the way we move through the world. It includes your boundaries, your intuition, your habits, your rituals, all of that good stuff. It's your energy awareness. It is everything you do to stay in your own energy. A ward, on the other hand, is something you create. It's a focused, intentional boundary placed around your home or body or, around a space or an object. It is one action or anchor point of protection. Protection is the bigger picture, right? That's how you move through the world. And a ward is just one way you anchor that protection into a space. Okay, wards. Number 1 is going to be a doorway protection ward. Your front door is your main energetic entry point, or whatever door you come in and out of. At Beltane, you can place your hand on the door frame, speak an intention, or place a small object like a plant, a stone, a charm, place something at it. Say something super easy and simple like, only supportive, aligned energy enters here. That's your ward. Number 2 is a fire ward. Beltane is fire, so I say let's use it. Light a candle and set the intention that anything misaligned is burned away, and your space is protected and clear. You can visualize your entire home surrounded in a soft, protective flame, not destructive, just filtering. Third is a window ward. Open your windows, like even if it's just for a few minutes. And as the air moves through, set the intention that anything heavy leaves. Only fresh, supportive energy remains. This is a beautiful, simple Beltane reset. Number 4 is garden or like a plant ward. Choose a plant or a few and assign them a role like protection, grounding, or filtering energy. Every time you water them, you are reinforcing that ward. Number 5 is a personal body ward. Before leaving your house, take a second. Hand over your heart or, just breathe and say, I move through today protected, grounded and clear. That becomes your personal energetic boundary. Number 6 is jewelry or some type of like wearable ward. Pick an item like a necklace or a ring or even a specific color you wear and charge it with intention. This holds my protection. And then wear it consistently during the Beltane season. I actually personally recently did this with some ashes of both of my German Shepherd dogs that was made into a ring. And I'm going to tell you, man, that ring, it is so powerful. Let's see. Number 7 is sound wards. Sound clears and resets energy pretty quickly. I personally like using bells, but you can use music, just clapping your hands, or even using your voice. Walk through your space and let the sound push out anything stagnant. Number 8 is a boundary ward. This is, the real life magic. Choose one boundary, say no, not overcommitting, maybe protecting your time. This is a powerful type of award because you're not just protecting your space, you are protecting your energy at the source. And 9 is a threshold sweep, kind of like a old to new transition. At Beltane, thresholds matter. Take a broom or even just your hand, energetically, and sweep your doorway, sweep your floors, or visualize just clearing out the old. You are making the transition that this energy is complete and this space is ready. Now, you don't need to do all 9. Pick one or 2 that just feel natural or that mean something to you, because words are all about being intentional with what you already have. All right, I've got some protection and wards for the office too. And I would like to walk into this energy for our offices, workspaces, business environments, wherever your job is, because protection and wards at work are very real. We've got deadlines, expectations, other people's stress, conversations that don't always feel aligned, blah, blah, blah. There are a lot of moving parts in and around those spaces. So, what does protection look like there? Might look a little different. You're probably not lighting candles at your desk or placing herbs around your office. Now, I do. I can do that because I have my corporate space set up that way, but maybe you can't. So let's make it super simple and subtle. A ward at the office can look like sitting at your desk, standing, whatever you need to do, just taking one breath and setting the intention. Only what is aligned with me stays with me today. You can create a boundary before you even open your email. You can choose one small object at your desk, a pen, a stone, a plant, and let that hold your intention for the day. You can wash your hands after a stressful interaction and let that moment be the release. You can decide that not everything that comes across your desk gets to live in your energy. Because protection at work isn't about blocking everything out. I think it's more about staying rooted in yourself while, everything else moves around you. And when you can do that, you are not just protected, you are powerful. A powerful business witch. I'll share the 3 things that I have marked down to do in my offices. The first one is clear the energy email spell. This is for those moments when your inbox feels heavy and chaotic or overwhelming, like mine does every single day. Before you open your email, just pause, take a breath, and say, only what is aligned with me moves forward today. Then open your inbox, and as you read each email, notice what feels clear, neutral, or heavy. And give yourself permission to respond, delay, and not carry it emotionally. This is through discernment. The second is a desk anchor spell, where I'm just going to pick one item on my desk and place my hand on it for just a second and set an intention. Like, this holds my focus and my protection today. Throughout the day, then, whenever things feel off, I'm going to touch that item. It's going to become my reset point. And third is an end of day release spell. Before I leave work, I'm not just going to grab my things and go. I'm going to take 10 seconds, stand, sit. I'm going to do whatever just comes naturally. And I'm going to think to myself, anything that is not mine stays here. Then I'm going to do something, brush my hands off, take a breath, wash my hands. I don't know. I'm going to do something to create a clear, energetic line between work energy and my personal life. This is what being a business witch really looks like. We're not doing more, right? We are moving differently through what we already have. Okay, Beltane. Beltane! Next week we step fully into Beltane, like all in. Full moon and all in. Everything we've been talking about today, the protection, the grounding, the awareness, this is what gets us ready. Because Beltane is not quiet energy. It is fire and movement and connection and celebration. It is a bunch of celebration. It is life showing up in a really big, really visible way. And I want us to feel that. Not just understand it, but like actually step into it. It is our time to celebrate. So next week, we are going to celebrate. This is your party invitation. We are going to talk about what this energy really looks like in your life, how to work with it, how to bring it into your space, your practice, your everyday world. And I'm going to walk you through a really simple way to actually experience Beltane. Not just learn about it, but let's celebrate it together. If you've been feeling the shift and noticing, things starting to open up, if something in you is ready to move forward, please come back. Please come back next week because we are not just talking about the energy anymore. We are actually going to step right into it. And if you can stay with me for just a little bit longer, I do have a poem. Well, maybe more like a spell, something you can use and say for protection. And I've got our moon update for this week. I'm going to go grab those notes and I will be right back. I've got a spell or poem, whatever you want to call it, and please feel free to use it if you like this. And it goes. By flame that burns and does no harm, I stand within a circle calm. By breath of air that clears the way, all that's not mine may not stay. By water's flow so soft, so true, I wash away what I outgrew. By earth beneath my steady feet, I claim this space. It is complete. No word unkind, no wandering weight may cross this line or share my state. What lingers heavy, what feels wrong, is released now. It won't stay long. I call my energy back to me, from all I've been, from all I see. No thread remains where I don't choose. No space is held for what I lose. Protected, grounded, clear I stand, with steady heart and open hand. What's meant for me will find its way. All else dissolves and fades away. The moon update for this week of April 22nd is a waxing crescent moon. This is the phase right after the new moon we had over the weekend. So you have already released, reset, and set intentions, or at least felt into them, right? Now you begin. It is our momentum that is starting to build. This is first step energy. Sometimes just one step, right? That's enough. You'll know what is right. Whatever you felt during the new moon, now you revisit it, refine it, and speak it again. Say things like, this is what I am building, and mean it. This is where manifestation actually starts to move. You can write your goals again, visualize them starting to take shape, and speak them out loud. The waxing moon is less, dreaming and more directing. This phase pairs beautifully with candles, shocker, especially now with Beltane around the corner. I personally always like candle magic, but, right now you can light a small candle each day to encourage your goals to grow. Focus on growth and just let the flame represent momentum building. You can do this each day up to the full moon. Be sure to clear doubt early, right? This is important because as things begin, naturally, so does doubt and hesitation and our second-guessing drama that we can be so good at. So you know what? When these things show up, just say, no, we are moving forward. This is protection through belief, really. This waxing phase is kind of like watering a seed. You don't dig it up to check if it's growing. You just trust and tend to it and give it space. If the dark moon is about release, rest, and endings, well, then the waxing crescent is about beginning and building and believing. It is where we start to move in small, intentional steps. It's really where what we have been sitting with begins to take shape. Thank you so much for being here with me and showing up week after week, for sitting in these conversations, whether they're light and playful or a little deeper and more reflective. I know our last two were a little heavy, so I am super excited to play and party with you for Beltane. Thank you, though, for trusting me with your time and your energy and with the work we do here together. This little space we've created, our circle, our family, it is something really special. So truly, thank you for being a part of it. Well, I hope you take full advantage of this waxing moon this week and start getting ready for our big party and celebration next week with the full moon and Beltane. I cannot wait to share all of it with you. Till then, I hope the rest of your week is amazing and you have a beautiful weekend. I'll talk with you next week. Thank you for joining me today at Witchy Work Wishes, a place to find your weekly inspiration for bringing your personal witchcraft practice into your business, work, and office. For more information and additional content, please visit me online at witchyworkwishes.com. If you want to send me a personal note, please email me at info@witchyworkwishes.com. And of course, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for Witchy Work Wishes.